The 1960s, a time of change, upheaval, and amazing music. But for gearheads like me, it was the golden age of muscle cars. Detroit was locked in a horsepower war, and leading the charge were two titans, Ford and Chrysler. These weren't just car companies, they were rivals in the truest sense, each determined to outdo the other. And at the heart of this battle were two legendary engines, the Chrysler 426 Hemi and the Ford Boss 429. These weren't just engines, they were statements. Declarations of power, performance, and pure American engineering. Today, we're going to break down these icons. We'll look at where they came from, what made them tick, and how they performed on the street and the track. Fasten your seatbelts, folks. This is going to be a wild ride. Chrysler's 426 Hemi. Even the name sounds powerful, doesn't it? Hemi refers to the hemispherical shape of the combustion chambers. This design, while not new, was revolutionary for its time in a production car. It allowed for bigger valves and a more efficient burn, meaning more power. Chrysler first experimented with Hemis in the early 1950s, even dropping one in a concept car, the Firepower. But it was in 1964 that the 426 Hemi roared onto the scene. It was a beast, designed for one thing, domination. And dominate it did, especially on the drag strip, where it quickly became the engine to beat. But the Hemi wasn't just about brute force, it had a certain elegance to its design. It was over-engineered in the best way possible, built like a tank and capable of handling far more power than Chrysler ever officially claimed. It was a masterpiece of its time. Now, Ford couldn't just sit back and watch Chrysler steal the show, could they? Enter the Boss 429. This engine was Ford's answer to the Hemi, and they weren't messing around. The Boss 429 was born from racing, specifically NASCAR. Ford wanted to dethrone Chrysler on the high banks of Daytona and Talladega. To do that, they needed a powerful and aerodynamic engine. The Boss 429, with its unique semi-hemispherical combustion chambers, was the answer. Unlike the Hemi, which was designed for brute force, the Boss 429 was more sophisticated. It used a single overhead camshaft design, which was considered more advanced at the time, and it was built for high RPM, screaming its way to victory. This wasn't just an engine for the track, though. Ford had to build a certain number of street-legal versions to meet NASCAR's homologation rules. And that, my friends, is how a legend was born. Section 4, Tale of the Tape Comparing Two Titans. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How did these two engines stack up on paper? On the surface, the numbers were surprisingly close. The 426 Hemi officially boasted 425 horsepower and a stump-pulling 490 pound-feet of torque. The Boss 429, on the other hand, was rated at 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, but those were just the numbers. You see, back then, horsepower figures were often, let's just say, conservative. Many believe both engines were significantly underrated, likely pushing out well over 400 horsepower in reality. The truth is, comparing these engines solely on horsepower and torque is like comparing apples and oranges. They were designed for different purposes with different strengths. The Hemi was all about low-end grunt, while the Boss 429 loved to rev on the track. Both engines achieved incredible success. The Hemi dominated drag strips and made its mark in NASCAR. The Boss 429, true to its roots, racked up wins in NASCAR and became a legend on the street. Section 5, Taming the Beasts, Shoehorning Power into Production Cars. Now, building these engines was one thing. Stuffing them into production cars was a whole other challenge. The 426 Hemi found its home in a variety of Chrysler products, including the Dodge Charger, Plymouth Roadrunner, and even the luxurious Chrysler 300. But fitting that massive engine into these cars wasn't easy. It required some serious engineering ingenuity. The Boss 429, meanwhile, was primarily found in one car, the 1969 and 1970 Ford Mustang. And let me tell you, cramming that engine into the Mustang's engine bay was like fitting a square peg into a round hole. Ford had to modify the Mustang's body, engine bay, and suspension to accommodate the Boss 429. They even had to move the battery to the trunk to make room. It was a testament to Ford's commitment to performance.